Hello everyone. So today this session, we have like two practical sessions. So this session and the session after the lunch break. So in the first part of this session, we will cover like, we have the introduction to the some WSO2 Integrator BI and Devant. And we will have like some sample scenario called O2Mart. So we will use that scenario to showcase two types of integrations, mainly the automation and integration as an API. So in the evening session, we have like, we are using the same scenario and then do file integration and database integration and do some things around RAG and Devant. And we finally show the MI component as well. Okay, so since it's a practical session, like if you are following with us, so we actually first of all, like we want to like make it as an interactive session. So whereas you could like try out the steps we are doing, and if you are doing this one, we want you to have like access to this repository, whereas which is we hosted in under the WSO2 Con organization, and there's a repository called 2025 this name. So you could access to this one. So there are some artifacts, some JSON files, and some URLs you could refer that we will be using with the tutorial. And in the very first beginning, we want to like install this WSO2 Integrator BI extension. So you have to have VS Code installed in your machines. So if you have VS Code, you could go to the extensions and search for this one. So you could set up in advance when you go through the slides. Right. Okay, so we have like two products. So first product is WSO2 Integrator product, so which is a 100% open source product, which is downloadable, and you could run anywhere and so. Like then we have this Devant AI pass, so which is this service, like you could like everything will be managed by us. So in this tutorial we will use both, and we'll show some of the capabilities of WSO2 Integrator, and then we will use Devant to deploy them. Okay, so we'll start with the WSO2 Integrator BI. So it's a low-code integration solution, so which could be used to develop your integrations, and you could like easily produce executables which are self-hosted, which could be deployed in VMs, and even the other cloud artifacts like Docker and Kubernetes artifacts, which could be deployed in Docker and Kubernetes environments. And then we have the Devant iPaaS, so you could like seamlessly integrate the BI with Devant and deploy them. So when it comes to VM and these Kubernetes artifacts, you have complete freedom to go with whatever the cloud providers, AWS, Azure, and Google as well. So same flexibility is there in the Devant as well. So only differentiator is that we take care of everything when it comes to deployment and managing them. So, so BI is actually based on Ballerina programming language as well, so which is again a language built for integration and so on. So we have like, again, like when you develop the integrations, there will be a source code, which is a Ballerina source code, which could be committed and managed in the GitHub and Bitbucket or any other version control systems. And we have like something called this Ballerina Central, which has like 600 plus connectors. So you could like always use those connectors, and even you could produce some of the libraries and push to the central as well. Right. I think like in the morning session also we talked about this architecture styles as well. So mainly there will be centralized and decentralized style. So WSO2 Integrator support both. Whereas like you could like deploy them as microservices or as traditional integration monolith applications as well. Right. So once you create those executables, so once you deploy them in some production level, so you will get something like this. So there will be, so all the integrations runs as runtimes. So those will be like managed and developed by tools, and you could like use the CI/CD flows to manage them as well. So additionally, we have other components in WSO2 Integrator, whereas with ICP, Integration Control Plane, you could like control these services and so on. And with the connectors, you could like connect with all the existing systems and other libraries as well. And when you run them, in order to manage and monitor them, you could use these observability tools. We actually support it with a bunch of tools existing out there. Now, this is like, you could like run, this is anywhere with freedom and so on. And also, like, if you want to like manage these things under us, you could like use the Devant, whereas similar integration you could like run in the data plane. Again, you have freedom to like pick whatever the service you are prefer to have, AWS, Azure, and Google, and so on. And we have the Devant control plane, which is to manage and deploy and observe them. So these are the two mechanisms to deploy the integrations. So we want to like put it in another terms, like if you take the normal development, we follow the CI/CD life cycles. So yeah, right. If you put the BI, so you have the BI extension and the tools which could be used to code the integrations. So here it is a low-code tool, and with so you are not basically coding. You probably generate code with low-code tools and with AI tools as well. And we have all the systems to like build and integrate test and generate tests as well. So basically, we have like all the tools you will follow in this side. So when it comes to CI part, if you're using something like GitHub, you know that you want to send a pull request and run the tests and so on. So all the things could be done by BI tools. Then when it comes to deployment, you have again the options to use Docker and Kubernetes or even the VMs as well and deploy it whatever the places you like to have. And then you want to monitor them, how your deployments can go on. So this is the normal life cycle you use by normal software development, but when it comes to integration development also, it's the same thing. So BI supports all of these things. So when you try to like bring Devant into here, so Devant will manage all the CD part. So whereas you could use the existing GitHub and everything and go do the coding and so on, then you could like bring it to the Devant, so the deployment and everything will be managed by Devant. So Devant has inbuilt capabilities to monitoring and so on. And also it has the capabilities to publish to whatever the existing systems as well, right? Then recently we introduced something called Devant Cloud Editor, whereas the coding part or the low-code tools, you could like do it in the cloud editor itself. So whereas everything will be happening inside the Devant and so on. So it will be like you are bringing all the CI/CD entire thing to the Devant as well. So you could like go with one of these options as well. So with Devant or without Devant, like you have like flexible deployment options with WSO2 Integrator. So whereas like you could like have your on-premise deployment and also like hybrid kind of things with Devant, some of the integrations in the Devant as well. And of course we have the like we will be maintaining the private integration cloud as well. So once the integrations are there, in order to manage them, so as I mentioned earlier, we have this ICP component. So you could like monitor them, you could like control all the integrations from a centralized location as well. Yes, so when it comes to especially microservices and so on, you have to have the observability. So we are supporting like bunch of the observability tools. So mainly like when it comes to metrics, the Prometheus and the Grafana dashboards, and also tracing with the Jaeger Zipking, and also like other tools like New Relic and Datadog as well. So I think like in the first session also we, Shasni actually covered these things in detail. What are the types of integrations we are doing, so automation, AI agents, integration as API. So all of these things are supported by BI. So we will be doing some of these things within our sessions as well. Okay. So we have like these 600 plus connectors, so which are already we manage, and we keep updating like with new connectors and so on. So you could like easily integrate them to your integrations with here. With low code is the like first approach. You are using the low code tool, but this is actually generating a code as well, which is a Bellna code. So you have like capability to like do the switch between low code to pro code and pro code to low code as well. So all the changes you do in the low code side will be affected to the pro code. You could like do the other way around as well. And also like when it comes to the types and those things, so we have the visualization capabilities in BI. You could like view types and everything. Yeah. So debugging is one of the key requirements when it comes to develop things. So we have introduced this UI debugging capability. So whereas you could like use and put the breakpoints in each steps, and you could do the debugging as well. So this is for the again low code and pro code. They both support this there. Okay. So we wanted to have like very simple use case. So we came up with like auto-mart use case, and we got Gemini to generate a logo as well. So we will use this one to showcase the features and so on. So assume it's a very like simple application, whereas there's a web application, and there's a core service which has like very three simple resources for the call products, orders, and customers, right? Then in this use case, what we are going to do is we are going to introduce a new service, whereas we call it as customer experience service, whereas we will use this existing service and introduce new two endpoints called promotions and feedback. So what we want to have is like yeah, the normal system is working for several years. So we want to like enhance this by like giving the capabilities to list down the promotions and so on based on your customer details and so on, and customers to provide a feedback. So we'll be using that feedback to first check it out. It's a negative feedback to a positive feedback. If it's a negative feedback, we will escalate it to internally. And we will like do some like small automation on offer notifier, which is the first integration we want to have. Right. So this is the first use case. So very simple use case once again. So I'll be doing this one. This is like in what we're going to do is like we are just calling the customer's API, customer's resource. Then we'll get all the customers and see who are the customers who are having like points more than like 5,000 points, and then notify them you have a exclusive offer, right? So you could like periodically run it like time to time, like maybe monthly or weekly and so on. Okay, so I will showcase that demo. So we thought of like we using the Devant, and we recently introduced this cloud editor. So since it's a very simple demo and so on, we thought of like go ahead with that. So if you're trying with us, you could always go to the devant.dev website or console.devant.dev website. So if you log in here, you could like use your Google credentials and so on. So this is the landing page you will have. So in Devant, we have these capabilities called organizations, projects, and components. So by default, you will get the organizations for your name, whereas you could like create multiple projects. So I'm going to create a project here. So I will mention it as Automart project and so on. Right. So here you could like even connect the GitHub and all of these things right away, but it's optional step, so I will leave it as it is. So I'll just create the project. Okay. So here I want to like create the project from the scratch. So by default, this feature is not there; it's in a preview state. So there's a way to like enable the preview features. So if you click on the your icon with your face, so you will get the feature preview option. So if you go over here, you will have some feature called Cloud Editor. So I will enable that. Right. So then once you enable it, there will be a new box will pop up called Create an Integration. So it is in beta state at the moment. So if you're trying it out, you could always go to this one and try it out. So I will click the Create an Integration. So this will set up the Cloud Editor for you in the browser. You don't have to install anything in your machine. So it's everything will be loaded here. So it will take some time to like set up your environment. So it's been loaded. So on the left-hand side, you will see this BI logo, so which is the BI component. So once you click this one, it will load the low-code editor for you in the browser. So once it's loading, like I will just explain the other things as well. So on the left-hand side, you see all the elements we have, these entry points, listeners, connections, and so on. So in the middle, you have this design canvas where you could like add artifacts and so on. So I will just go with adding a new artifact. So I click on this plus button. And these are the integrations we talked about earlier. So automations, AI agents, and integration as an API. So here if you see like we could like, so I will be doing automation, but there are other options as well, like you could like create a HTTP service or even integrations with Kafka, RabbitMQ, and so on, and file integrations, and other artifacts which is to support above integration. So I'm going with the automation. Okay. So it asks me to provide a optional configuration, which I don't need. So I'll just create the automation. Okay. So in the automation, it shows the flow diagram, whereas you could like add steps by using the UI. So so even in the left-hand side, you see like now the entry point has been like automation has been added as the entry point here. So I'm going to add steps here. So my steps are pretty straightforward. Call that API, the REST endpoint, and get the customers and iterate them and figure out the customers who are having more than 5,000 loyalty points. So I click here. Right. So in order to call this service, we need to have a connection. So I click on this add connection. So it will show all the connections you could include. So basically what I want is a HTTP connection, but of course it supports other protocols as well, GraphQL, WebSocket, TCP, and UDP, and also the database connections if you want, and also the other cloud integrations. And these are the like 600 plus connectors are there. So if you are like, just type something like Google or any connection you want to have, probably there will be a connector for this one. So I'm going with the very simple HTTP call. Okay. So in order to like create the connection, I have to specify the URL. So I have like kept this URL in this repository I mentioned in the earlier. So to save the time. So here there's a like lengthy URL. So I will copy that URL here. Right. And if you notice, like in this text box, it shows as this expression. So it is, whereas you could like build the URL as well. It's an expression. It's not just a text box. So since it's a string, I want to have like it's a hard-coded string, I will go with double quotes and keep that URL here. And you could like give a connection name. So I'm happy with the default connection name. So I'll create that. Okay. So if once you add the connection, you will notice in the left-hand side you have the HTTP client here. And also in the right-hand side, you will see the connection here. So now the connection is defined. So I'm going to do a get call against this connection. So I'll just click on here. So you will see all the possible methods are there. So I'll go with the get method. Now I have to mention the resource path, right? So it is also mentioned here as well. So I'm just like typing here as /customers, right? Okay. So if you could try it out with the curl command and see what is the response and so on. So if you call this one, it will return a JSON which is with the list of customers. So I want to like keep those customers in some record. So you could like define those type in this UI, right? So first of all, you have to define the type. So I'll just click here. There are the existing types will be loading, but I want to create my own type. So I click this create new type. So you could like manually define the type, like giving all the fields and so on. But I would rather prefer the import the type by using some existing JSON. So I already included the JSON here, which will be it's a sample JSON written from that endpoint. So I'll copy that. Okay. And also you could like give the type name. So I will give something like customers and click the import button. Okay. So if you notice, like again in the left-hand side, you see some of the types are loaded. So what it does is like it goes through the JSON and see whether there are complex types and so on. It will generate all the record types needed for here, right? And so the types by default, I'm using the customers type. So I could like give a variable name as well. So I'll give the variable names in customers in simple case, and I will save it. So this will do the call and assign the response to the records and so on. Now, once everything is in record, I want to iterate it. So I'll just click the plus button again. To iterate, you could use the for each loop. So it's a control flow. So I click the for each. So then you have to define what you are going to iterate. So it is actually the collection. So I click here. Once you click here, you see already the local under the local variables, the customers are there. So it's you could just select that one. And once you iterate, it will get each customer, and you need to assign it to some variable. So you could like give a variable name like customer and type. Now you don't need to like worry about the types. Each type is already generated. So it seems to be the customer's item. So I click that one as the individual customer, and I will save it. Okay. Now, if you want to figure out the number of customers who are having more than 5,000 points, you could use a if block. So I will press the plus button here, and then I'm going to put a if block here. You could like put the condition here. So since it's an expression editor, I will mention it as, so you have the customer there. And under loyalty, you have number of points here, right? So I'll mention it as greater than or equal to like 5,000, right? You could like keep adding the if you want, like you could add the if else block as well. For my use case, I'm happy with the only the if, right? So I will save it. Okay. Okay. So I want to send, actually, I want to send a mail to that customer that you have won it, but if you want to try it out, like you could even put a log and see whether what's the name, and you could like print it as well. So I'm going to put that as well. So I like to put something like log here. So in this, inside the for each, you have the customer variable. So you could like simply put the name, right? Okay. So when you're trying these things out, of course you have to like run and see the results. So that is capabilities also there in the cloud editor. So I click this run button, and I'll see whether it shows who are the customers who has like more than 5,000 points. Right. So these things are not deployed yet. These are running in the development stage at the moment. Okay. So it's printed. It's my name. So I'm the customer who having like more than 5,000 points. So on. So I'm going to like send an email to that customer. Of course, again, for me, saying like I have some exclusive offer, right? So I click plus button, and sending an email. Of course, you need to have like you could like integrate something like Gmail. So I will add another connection to call the Gmail API. Okay. So when you add in the Gmail the API, the connector, you have to provide a config. So I'll click on the config. Okay. So there's something called connection config. So you could like mention what is the authorization you are going to have. So you could like have the O2 refresh token authorization. So here you need to provide 3 things: refresh token, client ID, and client secret. Now, if you mention these things in here, probably it will be included in the source code, and it will be a problem because it will be end up in your GitHub repository. So I want to include something like a configuration here. So so I'm not going to hard code anything here. So I will go back here, and in the left-hand side you will notice there's something called configurations. So I'm going to define configurations and use those properties here, right? So in this configuration, you could like define the configurations by giving the name and the type. So I want to have I will put the exact same names there. So client ID, which is string type. So I'm not again putting default values because those are confidential values. If you put the default values, again those will end up in the source code. Right. So if you want, you could like put the documentation as well. Okay. I will add 2 other fields as well, client secret. And the refresh token. Okay. So in this UI, you could like give the values. So those values will be saved inside a separate file called this config.toml file, which is not included into when you're committing it to the GitHub repository. So I have like, to save time, I have already kept these values. So which is actually bound to a certain email account I use for the demonstration. So the refresh token, I'll put here. Client secret here. So of course, like you could like get these. So if you go to the Google and you could like generate these things against for your email. So I'm not going with those steps to save time, right? Okay. So I will go back to the integration again. So I was like inside my automation. I was about to add the Gmail. So I'm redoing the steps again. Right. Again, click that button, and again going to create the connection. So here again, I'm selecting the connection config and go with the O2 refresh token. And now I could like access those configuration variables. So those are the same names I gave here. You could like type here and it will suggest them. And finally the client secret. So again, you could like give the connection name as well. So I'm happy with the Gmail client. So I will leave that as it is. So this connection is added. Now I have to mention the exact method I need to send the email. So you could like once again click on these connections. So there are like a lot of connections are there. You could use this search and of course type something like send and see whether what are the send related methods. So there's something called send specified message to the recipient. So this is the one I want to have. I will click that one. Okay. So you have to mention the user ID which you are sending the mail. So I have this demo account I use to generate those secret and refresh token. So I'm going in that as the value here. So we created this sample email called automart.gmail.com. And for the payload, you have to mention what is the message you want to include for the email. So you could like even tick this one and see all the optional fields, and you could like select what are the fields you want to include for your payload. So I want to have email the to field, which is to specify the customer email address and subject, and I will like just like go with like very simple one with body as a text, right? So here you need to include the customer email, so which is dynamically loaded. So I will use that customer variable and say include the customer email. Right. Subject, I'm going to mention a hard-coded subject as a string saying automart, something like exclusive offer. Right. So text, you could like have HTML as well. So I'm going with text option. So I'm again having like a very simple message here. You could like so in BI we have this thing called string templating. So you could like use that as well. So I will say string and use a backtick and say hello. And I want to mention hello, what's the name of the customer. So I will put this one, saying customer.name. Customer.name. Hello, you have won an exclusive offer for your number of points I want to include. So I would say customer dot you have the loyalty dot number of points, and then mention the value and points, right? And close the backtick, right? Okay. I will save this one. Okay. So here it's adding, it's calling Gmail client, and it will send the email there, right? Again, I could like try this one by clicking the run button. So it should like get the specific customer and send the email for that customer. Right. Okay, so I have already loaded that inbox for me. So actually I used the same account and send the mail to the same account. So this is the mail I got like at this time, saying like you have won like 7,500 points, right? Okay, now next step is like, so this is again still in the development panel. So I want to like deploy in the Devant. So you could like click on the save button. So, and also the source code is also inside this cloud editor. So you could like, first thing is that you could like deploy it in actually commit it to a GitHub repository, then integrate it to Devant. So I'm going to use the GitHub name. So this is my name, which is showing under the organizations. So I will just I want to create a new repository for this integration. So I'll go with that option. Okay, so it's going to open the GitHub and give me option to create a repository there. So I click here. Okay, I will give like automation or something like that. Okay, it's a public repository. I'll create the repository. Okay, so it's a empty repository. So I'll go back to my cloud editor, and it has option to now connect that newly created repository here. So I click here. Okay, so in order to connect that one, I have to again give the permissions from the GitHub side. So I have to go back to the GitHub again. So I will like go with here. So I'm going to like, usually I'm giving like the selected repositories only. So this is the automation. Let's say save. Okay, so I will go back to cloud editor. So it has this repository now listed here. So I'm going to select that. So I'm like, I want to like keep it in the root of the repository. I will leave it like that, and I will leave the repo name as the integration name as well. And I quickly click the deploy button. So in these steps, what happened here is like Cloud Editor will bring your code into the repository and commit on behalf of you, and then it will try to build in the Devant as well. So it will take some few seconds for that task. Okay, now it's going to like, it's committed, and it want to like load back that source from the repository to here. So I will again load from there. Now if you go back to your repository, now if you refresh the repository, you probably see like the source code has been committed here by the Devant Cloud Editor. And if you go back here, it will like, now this artifact is coming from the repository here. So it will ask, it will mention that I have deployed this one in Devant. So open the Devant console. So I click here, so it will open in another tab. Okay. Now you see like it's already built in the integration. So once it's built, it gives me the option to deploy in development stage. So in this demo, we actually gave like brief introduction to Devant and like have this flow. So in the evening session, you could like see like what are the advanced stuff we could do with Devant, and we will like continue the session by doing more integration related tasks in the BI. So you could see the build logs as well. Okay. Seems okay. It's built. Now we have to like define those configurations we mentioned in the development mode here as well. So I'll configure them here. So I'm going to again bring those values here. So I'm going to get the client secret here, and then the client ID. And the refresh token. Okay. So you could like again test this in the Devant deployment. So I will click the test button. So it will again run those integration, and it should send the same email back to me. And also, like, since it's an automation, you have the option to schedule it as well. So you could click this button, and you could mention the interval you want to schedule with a cron job as well. So you could like put something like maybe run in every day or every week, something like that. Right. Now here we are trying to run it from the Devant side. Again, you could like see the logs as well. Okay, it's not loading the logs. Okay, that's fine. So, but I will like to see if I got the email, not yet. We will wait some time. Okay, so I got the mail from the Devant as well. Right. So it will update this one as soon it is successfully executed. Okay, that's it from my side. So I will hand over Maryam to continue with the rest of the tutorial. Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. So before we move on to implementing the rest of the, basically the custom experience service, I'd like to take a few minutes to speak about how we also integrate AI into these workflows and into this development experience. So we like to think of it in two ways. One is AI for integration, where we use AI to enhance the integration development experience, to improve productivity by code suggestions, even in the low-code view, as we'll see. And then we have integration for AI, where we can actually integrate talking to LLMs and AI to build intelligent digital experiences. So that's basically where you have AI as part of your runtime logic. So we have AI-assisted development with Ballerina Integrator, where you can basically describe your integration requirements in natural language and have AI do the work for you. And like I previously mentioned, we have inline suggestions, both in the low-code mode as well, similar to what you would see maybe with GitHub Copilot when you're using it in like a pro-code scenario. This is also natural language-based interactive development. So BI has its own BI Copilot. So you can chat with it, you can refine your requirements, and then when you're ready to generate your integration, you can generate it, even review it, and then accept it. BI also has visual data mapping, where you can do your data mapping in a graphical interface, but this is also now AI-assisted data mapping. So you can automatically map data fields. So this is a bit of a comprehensive example. We'll go through a simpler example today. But you can use automatic data mapping for it to suggest an initial set of mapping that you could probably accept as is, or then you can go on and refine later on. So this can also include, you can also upload documents to provide additional context. So if you have something in natural language that explains what kind of mapping you want, it's not just a one-to-one mapping, that can also be done with the AI-assisted data mapper. And generally, as we've already seen, Ballerina Integrator supports importing JSON and XML values as stronger types, and to then perform the mapping over that. There's also AI-assisted testing. So BI supports testing, and to add on to that, you can use Ballerina Copilot, Ballerina Integrator Copilot, to generate tests against a particular function, against our implementation, but also like against specific resources. And then there's the other side of it, integrating AI to build intelligent integrations, where you can integrate calls to LLMs, AI agents, and enhance your queries using retrieval augmented generation, RAG, and so much more to build digital experiences that are now also intelligent. And there's also comprehensive connectivity to these different generative AI models, our own abstractions that make it easier to switch between models if that's a requirement. So this is what the retrieval augmented generation application development workflow looks like. So we have abstractions for all of these different components, and then you can use the low-code mode to develop your RAG applications. It's also possible to build AI agents in this. So not only does it have these integrations to different large language models. It also allows you to integrate your existing functions, APIs, open API specifications to generate and integrate tools into your agents. So now we'll move on with the Automart use case that Tharik briefly introduced. So we'll use some of these components when integrating these different resources. So we'll start off with the promotions endpoint, which is basically once a customer wants to view the promotions that they have. So we will get the customer's customer ID, we will retrieve customer data, and then based on the customer ID, we will customer data. Based on the customer's data, there's the loyalty points that we've already seen. We'll use that to retrieve the currently available promotions for that loyalty level, and then we'll retrieve the relevant products, transform it, and make it available to the user. So we have these details in the GitHub repository as well. So I will be using the VS Code plugin locally. So I have the BI plugin installed, as Tharik already demonstrated. So here we can go and say create new integration. I'll just give it a name here, Customer Experience Service. I'll create the integration. So now we'll be implementing a REST API and HTTP service. So I can go to Add Artifact. I'll select the HTTP service option here. And here there's some default configuration for the HTTP listener to use. So we'll be using designs from scratch right now, but if you have an open API specification, you can use that as well. So I'll just say Automart here as the base path. I'll do create. And this is the service designer view. So it has, by default, it has created this greeting resource for us. We can go and modify it, but also add more resources. So since we are doing the promotions endpoint first, like I said, we get the customer ID, that's as a query parameter, and then we need to respond in this particular format. So if there's this product ID, there's this label, which combines the name of the product with, and then says discount % off, the original price, the discounted price, and then we have a text that says valid until. So let's start off with implementing the get resource. So we have customer ID as a query parameter. I'll go ahead and edit this. So we can change this, and we'll say promotions. And then you can also add path parameters here. We are not doing that now, but let's go ahead and add a query parameter. So here we want to add customer ID. And we can select the string type here from the type helper. We can go ahead and add that. So Ballerina natively supports JSON and XML. Thus, Ballerina Integrator also does. But like Tharik showed already, we can instead generate stronger types, in a sense, that allows us to validate the data, validate that the data belongs to the expected structure before we send it out. So what we'll do here is we'll go and generate a type. So instead of this, I'll go ahead and create a new type. We'll import again from JSON. I'll just say promotions here. I'll give the name, and I've copied the JSON content that I had in the sample. So this will generate the types for us. Now I'll go ahead and select that new type here. And I'll click Save. So we'll leave the error handling out for today, but that's also possible to be done comprehensively. You can set your own, set specific error status code responses here. So if you look at the type view for a second, now we have the promotions, which was an array. And from that, we know that we have this promotions item, where 3 of these fields are strings, and then we have 2 that are decimal. So this is all generated for you based on just the JSON. So now we can go ahead and add the logic for the promotions endpoint. So the first thing we want to do is to retrieve data from the customer data from that core backend that Tharik previously showed. So I'll copy the URL, and I'll just go through this because we've done this already. We can go ahead and create a new connection. And I'll just say core backend connection here. Now that that's done, we can just go ahead and select the get resource here, get action. So here, again, we know that we need to pass the customer ID as a path parameter. So that's what we're going to do. So I'll go ahead and use a string template expression here. So we know it's customers. And here, we can now use the customer ID variable that we already have access to as a query parameter. And now for the response, we know it's going to be in this particular format, so we'll do the same to generate the customer data. And I'll rename the variable to be custom instead. So now that we have the customer, let's go ahead and extract the loyalty points out to a variable. So I'll just say declare variable. So here from the customer record, we know that we can, so now that we have those strong types generated, BI is able to give us suggestions to what can be done on top of these values. That also includes information about what the particular types are. So if you do point say, it tells us that it's an integer. Yeah, so we have this variable declared now so that we can use it in our subsequent logic. So next we have this call to the promotions endpoint, the separate service that we want to pass in the loyalty points and get the current promotions for that. But now instead of doing what we've been doing so far, we'll go ahead and generate a connector locally to use with that particular service. So they've published an Open API specification. We have an Open API specification for that, so we can go ahead and download that. So I've downloaded the Open API specification. And now I can go ahead and add a local connection based on that Open API specification. So here, under the Add a Connector section, we have this local section. So there are no local connectors at the moment. You can create one by importing an Open API spec. So that's what we're going to do. So I'll just give this the name promos. And now I'll select that file that I've downloaded. So that generated a connector for us that we can now use without having to manually go and generate those types, given that we already have an Open API specification. So we'll use that, and we'll say, I'll just say promos connection here and create the client. And now that we have that connection, when we click on it, it will show us the available operations on that. So I can go ahead and say get promotions, and now it knows that we need to just pass in the loyalty points. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'll just select loyalty points, and I'll rename this. Yes. So now that we have that, the next step is to retrieve the product data. So this is the structure of what we get from basically the promotions endpoint. Now we need to integrate, so we have the product ID and the discount percentage and when the promotion ends. So we need to use the product ID and retrieve the product data relevant to that from the core backend. And then we need to use that information along with this promotion information that we've already retrieved to generate output that is in that format that we expected. So just for demonstration, I'll do it. We'll assume we are doing a call. There's a few products, and we are doing one call per product. So we'll go ahead and add a for each loop. But before we do that, we know that we are going to go return a promotion array from this resource. So what I'll do is I'll first declare a variable to which we can array as an array, to which we can then go and update the values that we transform. So this is basically the promotions that we are going to return from this resource. So I'll just go ahead and say promotions. And this is going to be of that type. That's basically the return type of the resource. And then I'll initialize this to an empty array. So now let's go ahead and introduce the for each loop to work with this. So we need to specify the collection as Tharik did previously. So here we are working with the promos we retrieved for the loyalty points, so I'll do that. And here we know it's from that type that from the module that we've generated from the connector. So I'll search for promos, and I know it's promotion from that array. So just name it promotion. And then for each of these, we need to call the backend to retrieve the product data. So let's assume this endpoint actually returns XML. So again, since Ballerina inherently supports XML, Ballerina integrated us, so we can do this call and assign the value to a variable of type XML. So we'll go ahead and use the same core backend connection. Again, we'll do a get. And this time around, it's products with the product ID. And here, since we have the promotion, again, we can look up the product ID from that and include it in the resource. So we'll use XML as the type here, and we'll say product XML, give product XML as the name. So what this does is the connection automatically data binds that this call automatically data binds the response to the type that is expected. So that's what also happens with those JSON, the record types we define based on the JSON. So you don't have to go and manually handle that. The connection itself will handle that for you. So here again, we know that the product is expected to be of this structure. So Ballerina also has these data modules to work with JSON, XML, YAML, and so on. So there's comprehensive support, which also means that you can convert between one format to another. And these record types, that strong types that we generate, are often the intermediate representation between them. And you can generally convert from one of these data types to record an array types. So now I'll go ahead and actually generate another type based on the XML we've imported now. So here, if I go ahead and paste the expected response, this will also generate records for us. So now we have this product type generated here. So if you click on edit, this is also the type editor view. You can go ahead and modify it if required. So this has generated us with string, decimal, and int. And under advanced option, you can say whether you want to allow additional fields or not. So I don't want to allow additional fields, so I'll just untick this. And so once you generate it, if necessary, you can go ahead and modify the type also. Yeah. Now if we go back to the promotions endpoint, so we know that we have the XML, we know we have the type, so we can use these data modules to actually do this conversion with one simple function call. So I'll go to function call function, and I'll search for XML data. So here we have this pass as type function. So we can just specify the product XML as the source XML value. And as a type, now we have the generated type, so we can go ahead and use that. I'll rename the variable. So now we have the product and the promotion details as records. Now it's a matter of combining them to transform it to the format that we expect in. So what I'll do here is I'll introduce a data mapper. So I'll select map data and go ahead and say create data mapper. So now I'll call it transform promotion. So as input, now I can select those two types that I have already created. So first one was promotion. So the other one was the product. Now that we have those, we can go ahead and so we're transforming one, so we can select promotions item. And I'll also include error here to allow for any errors that could happen within the transformation process. So I'll click on create. And that now adds this function for us into the palette. So before we actually add it here, we'll go ahead and implement the transform promotion function. So the first thing we'll do here is before we actually go and do this mapping, I'll try and use the Ballerina Copilot to generate this mapping. So when I click on automap here, I was in this transform promotion wave, it figured out which function that it needs to try and implement the data mapping. So I'll go ahead and click enter. So this is where you can also integrate additional information if you want to, but since this is a fairly straightforward implementation, I'll go ahead and just use this. And it shows us a few mappings that we can accept. So this is actually the code view of this, but we'll look at it in the low-code view. So it has figured out that product ID needs to be mapped here, and then ends needs to be mapped to valid until, and the price has been mapped to original price. So there's a few things that we still need to do. So we can go ahead and do that. So we had the name that we wanted to include in the label, and we wanted to say what percentage of it was off. So we'll do that. You can just click and join this, and then you can go to the editor view, expression editor view, and modify the expression. So here we had product name as a string and percentage is an integer, so it needs us to do some conversion there. So I'll go ahead and make this toString, but here we actually had some additional things, string content that we needed to do, so I'll go ahead and add that. Yeah, so that's done. And then we had the price and the discounted price that we needed to update. So I'll say price, and I'll use the discount percentage here. So I'll update this. So here we have suggestions for all the different kinds of expressions that you can use, grouped under the relevant categories. So I'll just add parentheses here and update this. So here again, we have this suggestion from the product. So I'll add that. So we'll go ahead and hit save. So we'll actually leave this ends to, so this also needs to be changed. So the date format, if you remember, the expected format was to be something like in basically natural language. But right now what we have is something like this. So we'll leave it like that for now. And now we'll go ahead and add the data mapper in our promotion resource. So here I can select the data mapper that I've just created. So we need to pass in the promotion. So you can construct a record, but we already have the promotion created. So I'll use promotion. I'll use product from here. And then we can just say promotions item. And now that that's done, we can go ahead and, so we created that array to collect all of these conversions that we're doing. So we go ahead and push it into that array. Here we will add the value. So now that the array is populated, we can go ahead and return it. And like I mentioned, there's this AI-assisted suggestion inline. We can accept it or reject it after reviewing. So here it looks OK, so I'll go ahead and say accept. So that's it. So let's just try running this resource first. So I can click on try it here, and it'll ask me if I want to run the integration first. So I'll do that. So this opens up this try it view for us. So we have a few custom IDs in the database. So I'll go ahead and add one of those. Yeah, and it gives me the promotions almost in the expected format. We still have to fix valid until. So we'll just try another one more. So I think this was Tharik's custom ID. And yeah, he has a few more because he has more loyalty points. And then, so now that that's done, we'll go ahead and implement just that last bit. But obviously, we need to pass the date and time and transform it into the format expected. So instead of trying to manually implement that, what I'll do is I'll use the BI Copilot to try and implement that function. The functionality. So I have a prompt here. I'll just go ahead and copy it just to save a bit of time. So what I've said here is to define a function that accepts a date in the format of this and produces a string with just the month followed by the date. So that's what we're doing here. So I'll go ahead and send. So that basically tells us all of the things that it's going to try and do to implement this requirement of ours. And it generates a function that we can use. So I'll go ahead and just say add to integration. And now if we look at the constructs that we have available, we also have this format date to month day function that is generated. So it uses the time library and then passes a string to get the date month details, and then it also has introduced this get month name function to just extract out the month details based on the number. So now let's go back to our data mapper and update valid until. So it actually had something else also. It had like this until part at the front, so I'll just add that. And since this time formatting can return an error, we'll use we'll use this check expression. So you don't have to really go into details, but basically errors get propagated and handled at the resource level. So in suggestions, we now have that function that we've written, that AI generated for us, and now we can go ahead and select promotions ends here. So we'll click Save, and now we'll go ahead and run our promotion service again. We'll use custom ID again. So this actually fails because it says this text cannot be passed at index 10. So it seems to be an issue with that format datetime function that we've introduced. So Copilot generated it for us. So we'll go back and ask Copilot what it would be. So I'll say, I'm getting this error. Takes some time. Yeah, so it tells me that this error occurs because this particular function expects a full RFC 339 timestamp, but it's not that. So it'll actually go ahead and suggest a fix for us. So it has actually gone ahead and appended this for us. So I'll go ahead and do add to integration. Okay. So now that that's done, let's try running it again. Yeah. Seems to work now. So that's one part of how AI, some parts of how AI assists the development process itself. So a few more things to, one other thing I'd like to mention is the testing capabilities. So you can also add tests in the low-code mode, similar to what we've been doing. So here I'll go ahead and just, to keep things simple, I'll just add a test for the transformation function that we've done. Keep it as is, and then click on Save. So we can, again, write the test logic similar to what we've been doing so far. So in the interest of time, I'll just copy in some of the values. So we'll do declare variable, and we'll do the product first. So this was of type product, and I'll copy in the expression. So we also have this option of an inline data mapper. So what we did previously was to define a data mapper separately. And we recently introduced this inline data mapper that has more powerful expression editing capabilities. So I'll click Save here. I'll then go ahead and create the promotion also. Have this expression, and I'll do Save. And I'll also add the expected value. So that is of promotions, the promotions item type. So I'll just say expected. And now we can go ahead and add assertions. So when you go and call function, it will now show us some of these imported functions that can be used for tests. So it has extensive functionality for assertions, not only assertions, but also for mocking as well. So we're just doing an assert equals now. We'll call the function that we're using for transformation. So it was transform promotion. The first argument was promotion. So I'll use that. And it's giving me the suggestions here to say what was expected. So that looks OK. And now we can select the expected value here as the expected value, and we just do save. So now we can go ahead and run this test that we've added. Yeah, and the test has passed. So there's, like I mentioned previously, there's also AI-assisted test generation. So this is a very, very basic scenario, but let's go ahead and use AI to generate test cases for our actual resource. So here we have these different sub-commands under the Copilot, like data map, which is pretty much what we used internally for data mapping, type creator that can create types based on natural language descriptions, and OpenAPI support, and so on. So we'll just use the tests sub-command here. And you can either specify the service name, or we can specify a specific resource to generate tests for. So when I click on the second one, it identifies that I have this promotions resource here. So I'll go and click on that. And I'll hit generate. So this will actually generate like a comprehensive test plan first. And then there's also the option for the user to interact and maybe add different cases and so on. So it will take some time, but it will come up with a comprehensive plan based on the resource that we have. I'll give it a couple more seconds. Yeah, so this says, it gives us an overview. This test plan covers the get promotions resource, and it gives a summary of what the resource does. And then it has these different scenarios that it suggests that need to be tested. So you can modify them, remove them, add a few more. So that's an option. And then you can go ahead and say generate tests. So it will generate the tests, and it will then also analyze the tests to identify any potential issues. So this also happens with code generation. So there's like a self-correcting step based on potential compilation errors and so on that happens before the final code is actually suggested to you. Yeah, so that generates a bunch of tests for us. This generally works well in the first go, but occasionally there'll have to be some tweaks that need to be made to get them to work as expected. So in the interest of time, we'll not add these to the integration, so we'll move on to the next resource. So the next endpoint was the feedback endpoint, where the user can, a customer can basically submit feedback against a particular odd ID, and the feedback is basically natural language, a string. And then we call an LLM to identify the sentiment of the feedback and also do some data extraction tasks like extracting out what products are mentioned and then what areas the customer is talking about. And then we also want to send an email and integrate and persist the feedback into a database. So the Gmail API we've already covered, and in the afternoon session we'll be covering databases, so we will not go into those in much detail. But let's look at how we can integrate this LLM call with BI. So let's go back to the service. So we have this one resource. So we'll go ahead and add another resource. Now it's a post. It has to be a post request. So it has to have a post request. So we'll go ahead and select post, and we'll say feedback. So now it has to allow this payload. So it has the odd ID and feedback in the payload. I'll just copy that and do what we've been doing so far. So we'll add that and just leave the response as is. We're not going to specifically respond with anything here. So we have the feedback endpoint now. So we'll go ahead and try and modify that. So before we integrate the call to an LLM, so like I mentioned, there's a few things that we need to identify. So one of it is the sentiment. The sentiment, so we'll go to the type weave, and we'll actually go ahead and add an enum. So BI supports enums, so we can just say sentiment. And I'll just say negative, neutral, and positive. Next positive, let me just add it. So far, we've been generating the types, but we can also define a type explicitly if we want to. So that's what we're going to do. So let's say feedback analysis. And here, we can go ahead and add the fields that we want. So we had sentiment, which is of the sentiment type. But you can also add descriptions to these types. So I'll say sentiment of the feedback. So in the call to the LLM, so what we will do is we'll use this record type, we'll use this type, and generate a JSON schema in the call to the LLM. So that will also include these descriptions about these fields so that it knows what is expected to give a better response. So I'll add the description here. So we have categories, which is basically the list of applicable categories the feedback was for. And there was also products. So I'm just saying comma separated list of categories, comma separated list of products. And I'll hit save. And now we have this type that we've just created. So I'll go back to the feedback endpoint. And now what we can do is we'll introduce a model provider. A model provider is basically BI's abstraction for different LLMs. So there's implementations for most of these major model providers. So you can click on that and pick one. So as you can see, there's from OpenAI to Azure to Anthropic, there's quite a few. But today we'll be using the default model provider made available by WSO2. I'll just say model. And I'll save it. So with model, there's two different options that we have. Chat is basically like a history preserving interactive in the sense that the previous messages can be preserved. Generate is more of a one-time thing, that it does one call and it uses the type, which is basically like a feedback analysis type, in the call to reflect what it really wants. This schema generation happens internally. So generate is what we really want at this point, so we'll do that. And I'll just copy in the prompt again. So you can specify basically anything in natural language here. So I've said analyze the sentiment for the following customer feedback for an order and extract the relevant details. So this is, we had the payload variable, and now we can extract feedback out from that. So now, as the expected type, we can directly use feedback analysis. And I'll rename this also. And hit save. So we'll just add a simple if-else, so we would send an email if it was negative, but just for now, I'll just log something out. So we can write an expression here. So we have feedback analysis, and we know that has a sentiment field. And then I can say if this is negative, so I'll this, and we'll add an else block. So we'll use the built-in login here. So we can say, I'll just say negative feedback received. You can just do a concatenation. And as optional configuration, you can pass any additional key value pairs that you need to be logged. So we had products. I'll just say products and get it from the products we expect. We also had categories. And let's go ahead and add the odd ID also, since we have that. So that was from the payload. So in the else case, we'll just say non-negative feedback and then log the sentiment as a key value pair. So now we can go ahead and run this. So I have a bunch of feedback samples that we can probably try. Let's start with something positive. Yeah, it says non-negative feedback received, and has the feedback, and then it says the sentiment was positive. And something that's a bit more neutral, maybe. Yeah, so there it identified as neutral. So let's go and try the negative feedback now. So this says noodles was crushed, missing item, missing from the box. Yeah, so now it identifies it as negative feedback. And then it has also extracted out the products noodles, and then the categories to say product quality and delivery were the areas that were affected. So that's basically how we integrate LLMs into simple LLM calls into our integration flows. But obviously, like we've also already spoken about, Ballerina Integrator supports building RAG applications, agents, and so on. So this was simply the first step of it. So we'll not integrate so we're running out of time, so we'll not integrate the email or the database here, but I have the sample committed in the same repository. So I'll just check out to that branch. So this is what our integration looks like once we've completed the different parts. So we have the promotions endpoint, which basically uses the backend and the promo service. And then we have the feedback that uses the LLM that we've just done, integrates Gmail, and also has this DB connection. So I'll just go into the feedback resource. And this is basically what it looks like. So once we have the feedback, use a DB connection, which is quite similar to how we've been using the connection so far. And then we extract the sentiment, and based on that, we send an email if necessary. So once we had that, we also have the option to deploy to Devant from here itself. So you can click on the deploy button, and then select an organization, and then follow the steps, which is quite similar in some ways to what Tharik already demonstrated. So I do already have this deployed on Devant. So we have this custom experience service, and with these two endpoints. So let me go to the test console and try and just get promotions again. So we had scale to 0 enabled for this. So I deployed it a while ago, so it's been inactive for a while. So that's why it's probably taking some time. But since we're running out of time, this is how we've deployed the integration that we developed locally into Devant. So I think we've come to the conclusion of this session. We are happy to take any questions. So let me. OK, while we wait for that, if there are any questions, we'll be happy to take them. But we also have a session after lunch, which on pretty much the same topic, but we'll be covering different aspects like file integration, databases, and also WSO2 Integrator in my component. Thank you.